It's daybreak here on Arise News, and it's time for the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. Let's begin with this day newspaper. Again, APC, the ruling party, moves convention now to hold on March 26th. That's a month away from the initial February 26th. More story on that on page 10. Leading pictures here on the front page of this day this morning, the Director General of the NYSC, Major General Shuaibu, and the Chairman of EFCC signing a Memorandum of Understanding of Collaboration in Abuja yesterday. And just beside that, a new era births at the MPA, the new Managing Director of the Nigerian Ports Authority, Mr. Mohammed Bello Koko, receiving his confirmation letter from the PAMSEC. Also in Abuja yesterday, more headlines in this day newspaper. The United Kingdom injects £10 million into Nigeria's energy sector. Above the nameplate this morning, return Nigeria's artifacts in your possession. President Buhari pleads with nations and institutions, says 1,130 Benin bronzes due back from Germany this year.
The Punch is leading with subsidy. It reports that Labour fumes as the IMF warns the federal government against fresh borrowings. Well, the riders, IMF says Nigeria likely to depend on CBN overdrafts to fund 2.6 trillion naira subsidy. Do away with funds advice, loans, that's according to the TUC, NLC, to the federal government. And let's take a few more headlines on the front pages here. APC shifts convention for third time, fixes March 26th new date. Governors meet over consensus zoning. Zonal congresses hold March 12th. And clearing agents, ground port operations begin indefinite strike over CBN evaluation. This and many more. You can pick a copy of the Punch this morning.
This is the Nation newspaper. The All Progressives Congress OAPC shifts convention to March 26 amid grumblings. Governors' protest changed indefinite postponement plan. A court declines Abba Kyari's release request. That's the so-called Super Cop who's been arrested. Don't take a VP slot. The social cultural group Ohaneze cautions Igbo politicians. And Tinubu urges Oyetola to be magnanimous in victory.
And Nigerian Tribune this morning, after a 7-hour meeting, APC fixes convention from March 26th, reverses self on zonal congresses as aspirants and others fume. However, sources say 3 governors are behind the postponement. A leading photo here on the front page of Nigerian Tribune, former Minister of State for Power, Mr. Godwin Jedi Abba, and Minister for Africa, United Kingdom, Mrs. Vicky Ford, and others yesterday in Abuja at the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding on Rural Electrification between Nigeria and the United Kingdom. Meanwhile, National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, gives federal government and ASU 7 days to resolve impasse, begins mobilization of members for nationwide protest, and that's as the federal government and ASU meets today. Above the nameplates this morning of Nigerian Tribune, Abba Kyari, the ex-Super Cop, says his health is deteriorating as the court refuses his bail application. Meanwhile, court strikes out suits challenging Atiku's Nigerian citizenship.
Let's take a look at the front pages of some of the international papers, shall we? Beginning with the Financial Times, it's reporting that President Putin is poised to recognize eastern Ukraine's 2 breakaway regions by redrawing borders.
Here's the Independent. Putin recognizes breakaway regions, and that's the picture of the president signing a decree provoking fury among Western leaders who've called it illegal.
More international papers this morning. The Guardian UK also leading with the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Putin puts Russia on collision course with West over Ukraine as UK is set to announce sanctions today. As Johnson says, Kremlin decision is an ill omen.
Well, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello as usual for the review this morning. Good morning, Emmanuel. This should not come as a surprise to many, should it? And sister publication leading with the crisis, if you like to call it, in the ruling party in Nigeria, the APC, shifting their national convention by a month. A surprise to you?
No, well, yesterday there were hints about that in the papers, and but if you look at the body language of the president just jetting off last week at the end of last week and not meeting with the APC governors and all of that, there were speculations here and there that maybe a postponement is in the works, and that is what we've seen now. Yes, it's quite disturbing, and why this is important, and I think almost all the dailies are dwelling on it, on the postponement, is because a lot of people were already looking at this week, the weekend, as when these conventions will happen, and then so that they will get some form of sense of direction. It's the ruling party, and the way it goes, so goes the nation. And so people are taking it seriously. And, you know, they, especially fans of the party, those who are party stalwarts of the APC, are probably really right now not very happy, very angry with what has happened, because we saw a fantastic example in the opposition party. They had a date, talked to it, they did it, and it came out well. So for most people, for most observers, this is like a situation where, like someone was saying yesterday, that the PDP got it right one, and then the APC did not get it right. And if you look at the postponement, it's not as if this postponement based on any serious issues of logistics, just pure crisis of planning, the problem within the party, things that could have been resolved but can't be resolved, and those are lingering problems. The fact that some people want to hijack the party and all the other issues. So, yeah, I think that is the seriousness with which this postponement. This is not just an ordinary postponement. This is also an indication of how confusing and how the party can't even address its own situation. And so people wonder, if you cannot even just hold a convention, you are holding on to the country itself. What does this portend for the country? What does it portend for planning? So this is the ruling party, and if it's unruly in its own ways of handling its own affairs, expect that Nigerians will be concerned and worried that there doesn't seem to be a cohesion or even a sense of direction or a sense of purpose or even some seriousness that leadership requires, and that if the party can go that way and just postpone elections, conventions, can't get a date, not too sure even right now of the venue, not too sure of some of the other things, some of the issues are still lingering, not sure of the zoning up to now. Some people think that this is the kind of confusion that reflects on how this party has governed this country in the last years. This is why this is very important.
You're quite optimistic on behalf of the party, because earlier the stakeholders in the party did say February 26th was sacrosanct, in their words, sacred, but that's not happening now. In the meantime, this day newspaper is saying UK injects £10 million into Nigeria's energy sector, and it's returning £210,000 in illegal payments. Some money coming into the coffers of the country. Perhaps we're going to see how these monies will be used, Emmanuel?
Yeah, we have to stay on the story, Kenneth, and look at, like, to your point, see how these monies are going to be used. And yes, the relationship, the bilateral relationship towards better sources of energy is very good. I mean, we must join the world in looking for better or cleaner growth or cleaner energy. That is the way the globe is going, and to reduce those carbon emissions. So this is the partnership that is looking to that, and to see whether we have all sorts of things in abundance. There's gas, there's wind energy, all sorts of other sources. So there's the solar energy. So these are other ways to really look at the energy crisis facing the country. And we must get energy right, because I mean, a country cannot grow better, or you can't find any growth if you don't have. Right now we have serious energy crisis. The electricity is not just there. Small businesses, even big businesses, are suffering because of the energy challenge that we have in this country. So any sort of support or cooperation with the UK or any other power that can help in sourcing other sources of energy, I think it's a welcome development. And yes, we stay and keep our eyes on the developments, especially those monies that we'll be receiving.
Manuel, let's shift now to the Nigerian Tribune, reporting about the federal government in ASU meeting today. Now, also, the Nigerian students have weighed in. They say they're giving the federal government and ASU 7 days. If not, they are going on a nationwide strike. What are your thoughts?
Well, again, the ASU story is one that is annoying, and like we keep saying, all sort of contradiction. There are people who blame ASU for embarking on this one in strike, saying that look, they should put the interests of the students uppermost. The student themselves torn between the action of their lecturers and of course the inaction of the federal government. I think all of us find ourselves in those kind of positions where actually it's so exhausting. You wonder who to blame. But at the end of the day, it's about leadership. It's about the federal government doing the right thing. And so NANS is giving out this warning, and that this has to be resolved. More meetings are going on, and I think it's about time we put an end to some of these stories that keep recurring about ASU. So many people are used to seeing this story. It's almost like a seasonal madness that comes in every 2-3 year cycle, or even a year cycle now, on a very repetitive scale. So, where to find who to blame sometimes becomes problematic. But a lot of people believing that look, more conversation, more dialogue, and if the federal government will just stop its doublespeak, its dribbling, its lethargy around this issue, that it will really help everyone at the end of the day.
Manuel, we have just about 2 minutes to go, but I would not let this slide. I see what you did earlier, the unruly ruling party, the APC. But very quickly, the Punch is leading with subsidy. Now, Labour says the federal government should shun the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, with its normal and usual funds advice, its advice and loans to the federal government. We also have the Super Cup Abba Kyari story making the round this morning. The court rejecting his request for a bail. He says he has chronic disease and needs to see a doctor.
Well, we cannot question court decisions, and there are Nigerians who say that look, what they want now is some form of serious, judgments around the issue of the Abba Kyari. Not many we have, even consider the fact that he's talking about his deteriorating health, and in the past, a lot of people have seen this kind of stories and those kind of excuses and all of that. So those who are watching the story closely just want some justice and done. Yes, and the warning of Labour against more borrowings, more collection is something that is shared by so many people. A lot of people thinking that look, we are sinking deeper into the morass, into the crisis of debt, and that some of this advice, some of these lendings, and some of these borrowings can only just deepen the economic crisis. IMF has always tried to advise nations and countries about how their economy is going, but what Labour is saying here is that some of this has to be taken with some kind of a pinch of salt, and you need to look at it critically and not just go borrowing all the time and deepening the crisis of debt and the debt profile. At a point, this is going to lead to some real crisis ahead, and I think that's where Labour is right in cautioning that it's not every time that you go borrowing and collecting monies that you probably don't even know how you are going to repay or how you are going to even use them.
Emmanuel, thanks for borrowing us your thoughts, as always. That's the press preview this morning, David.